My world had shrunk to the size of my apartment walls, and the silence within them was my only companion. I'm a freelance sound editor, a job I chose because it allowed me to meticulously control every decibel of my professional life, while demanding almost nothing from my own voice. My voice, you see, was broken. Not physically, but shackled by a profound anxiety that manifested in a debilitating stutter. It wasn't the gentle hesitation you see in movies. It was a roadblock, a dam of concrete that would rise in my throat without warning, leaving me gasping for air and utterly incapable of speech. So I built a fortress of silence. I ordered groceries online. I communicated with clients through email. I had no friends, only the disembodied voices I edited and mixed, shaping their perfect cadences while my own lay dormant and broken. But the silence, once a refuge, had become a prison. The quiet was deafening, and the loneliness was a physical ache in my chest. One Tuesday, on a desperate whim, I decided I needed something alive in my apartment, something that didn't require conversation. A plant. The thought of going into a store, of potentially having to ask for something, sent a wave of nausea through me. But the image of a splash of green against my stark white walls was a powerful motivator. I found a small, quiet-looking nursery online called The Silent Stem, and drove there, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The moment I stepped inside the greenhouse, the world changed. The air was warm, humid, and smelled of damp earth and living things. There was no jarring music, only the gentle drip of a fountain and the rustle of leaves. And behind a counter, carefully tending to a small orchid, was a man who seemed to be a part of the quiet itself. He had calm, kind eyes, a dusting of soil on his cheek, and large, gentle hands that moved with a patient, practiced grace. I spent nearly an hour wandering the aisles, too terrified to approach him. I finally settled on a small snake plant, something supposedly impossible to kill. I rehearsed the transaction in my head 100 times. Asterisk, just this one, please. How much? Thank you. Asterisk, 3 simple phrases. My throat was already closing up. As I approached the counter, he looked up and offered a soft, genuine smile. Found a friend? He asked, his voice as gentle as the air around us. I opened my mouth, but the dam rose. No air. No sound. Panic clawed at my chest. I could only manage a desperate, jerky nod, thrusting the pot forward. My face burned with shame. I fumbled for my wallet, wanting only to flee. He didn't laugh. He didn't look annoyed or confused. He simply took the pot, his fingers brushing mine for a fleeting second. It's a good choice, he said, his voice even. They're very forgiving. They don't ask for much, but they give a lot of peace. He rang it up, and I paid with a trembling hand, never making eye contact. As he handed me the bag, he stopped me. Wait. He walked over to a small table and picked up a tiny succulent, no bigger than my thumb. He placed it in my hand. This one's a gift, he said softly. For bravery. I stared at him, my eyes wide. He saw my struggle not as a flaw, but as an act of courage. It was the kindest thing anyone had done for me in years. I managed another nod, a lump forming in my throat, and hurried out before I could completely fall apart. That little plant became a lifeline. I named the man from the nursery Julian in my head. I went back the next week, and the week after. I never spoke, and he never pushed me to. I would just pick out a plant, bring it to the counter, and he would smile. Sometimes he'd tell me a little fact about the plant I'd chosen. He spoke enough for both of us, filling the space with his calm energy, never with pressure. The nursery became my sanctuary. One rainy afternoon, I was the only one there. I was looking at a collection of ferns when a large ceramic pot on a high shelf wobbled and crashed to the floor, shattering and sending soil everywhere. The noise was like a gunshot in the quiet haven. I froze, my body instantly rigid with panic. Julian rushed over. Are you all right? Did any of it hit you? He asked, his brow furrowed with concern. I shook my head, but my breathing was shallow. I tried to say, I am okay, but the words were hopelessly trapped. My stutter was at its worst when I was startled or felt I was at fault. Hey, it's all right, Julian said, seeing my distress. He didn't try to make me speak. Instead, he handed me a small dustpan and brush. Here, could you help me? It's easier with 2 people. And so we cleaned up the mess together in silence. The shared, simple task was more calming than any words could have been. When we were done, he made us both a cup of tea in his small office at the back of the greenhouse. I'm SSS. I tried, my voice cracking with the effort. It was the first time I had tried to say my name to him. He waited patiently, his gaze never leaving my face, never showing a hint of impatience. He gave me the time my brain needed to find the path for the word. Sam. I finally managed, the name coming out in a rush of air. He smiled, a beautiful, radiant smile. It's nice to finally meet you, Sam. I'm Julian. That was the turning point. Julian's patience was a key that began to unlock my voice. We started spending more time together. I'd help him close up the shop, my hands finding a strange comfort in the soil, in the act of nurturing life. We learned that we could communicate in 1,000 ways that didn't require perfect sentences. He learned I was a sound editor, and I learned he had inherited the nursery from his grandfather. One evening, as we sat in the warm, fragrant greenhouse long after the sun had set, I felt safe enough to try. I wanted him to know me. I told him about the origin of my prison, a third-grade presentation on dinosaurs that had gone horribly wrong, the laughter of my classmates, the teacher's impatient glare. I stumbled and fought for every word, my hands clenched into fists, but Julian just listened, his presence a steady anchor in my storm of memory. When I finished, exhausted and vulnerable, he reached across the small table and took my hand. His thumb gently stroked my knuckles. The kids who laughed were cruel, he said, his voice thick with emotion. And the teacher who didn't protect you was wrong. Your voice is beautiful, Sam. I love listening to it. Every word you fight for is a victory, and they are all worth waiting for. Tears I didn't know I was holding back streamed down my face. He didn't see my stutter as a defect. He saw the strength it took to speak at all. In his eyes, my brokenness was a form of beauty. He leaned in and kissed me, a kiss that wasn't about passion but about acceptance. It was a kiss that said, "You are safe here, you are whole here, you are heard." Our love grew like the plants in his greenhouse, slowly, quietly, but with deep and unshakable roots. He never tried to fix me. He just gave me a space where I didn't feel broken. And in that space, I began to heal myself. My stutter didn't vanish, but its power over me waned. Around Julian, my words began to flow, sometimes with ease, sometimes with effort, but always without fear. He taught me that silence didn't have to be a prison. It could be a shared peace. And I learned that a voice isn't defined by its fluency, but by the courage it takes to use it. In the quiet sanctuary of the greenhouse, surrounded by life, I finally found both my voice and my love, nurtured by the patient hands of a man who knew that some things just need a little time and a safe place to grow.